start the recording. How is everyone doing from a just a success? Is like I ask in the trading room, doing good, okay, or bad that particular session? How about overall? Let's say 2017. Let me just do a survey. G for good, O for okay, B for bad. I'll go through the responses. I won't name names, although some wouldn't have a problem with it. Doesn't matter. I won't name names. We'll just go through the lists. Let's give it some time, get some other people to answer. Those watching this in the future, you could listen in a second to the results of what some people have answered. Now, this is a core group. It's not just the edge guys, but it's people that come. When I look at names, I see very familiar names every Tuesday, every week. It's not just a matter of being part of this, but coming, right? Showing up. If you worked in a prop office, if you worked in a trading office, you'd have no choice but to come, right? There'd be some responsibility that if you didn't come, you'd probably be fired. I mean, that's how it was in our prop firm. Once he started hiring groups of 6 or 8 guys, they'd have sessions every day, not once a week, every day, and they were mandatory. Well, if you skipped them, you'd essentially be fired. He fired a guy for sleeping in one of the meetings, not on the spot, but then he was sleeping during a trading session, and that's when he tapped him on his shoulder and said, strike 2, you're out. So it's not just having the opportunity and access to these meetings, it's making sure that you're showing up, right? Because it's just once a week. And things happen where you can't, but then you watch the recording and just stay on it. It's not any one of these meetings are going to make you $1 million. It's just the continuation and the consistency of value that continues to just hit. I was watching a guy, when I think of his name, I'll send you the YouTube, and some of you guys might be familiar, but I wanted to bring it up at this meeting, and that was, what was his name? I can't think of it. But he talked about, when did you know that you fell in love? And you don't have that specific day or time where this is a person that I really love. They're incremental acts over a period of time. It's not that one trip or 24 roses. It's random acts of kindness, compliments, genuine, some sort of genuineness that you have, that you do wake up, and then on that one morning, it's the combination of all those things that made that relationship successful. Then he used the analogy of working out. You work out the first day, second day, you don't look in the mirror and see that you look great. There isn't even that one day you might even notice I look different. It's the constant, consistent workouts over 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 months where change happens. Not one workout, no matter how great it is going to make you look different. And trading is no different. What's the one thing that made you successful? You might not be able to point to it. You might. But it wasn't that one day, that one meeting. It was the constant drip that could help you turn the corner. You might not ever love the person, but boy, you gave it the best chance. And that's where some are that aren't making it, but they're constantly beating the drum. And it's just the sprinkles of consistency. So that's why I kind of get mad about being a little late. That happens once in a while. But think of the consistency of, this is what I think about when someone says 3 minutes late, you start on time. I think, SOB, I think to myself, 2.5 years ago, I said we're going to have Tuesday meetings. And we've only missed a few because of the holidays. Every Tuesday, if you look, never really gets missed. A couple here and there. They never get missed. I think of the trading room. Since I started doing it, I can count on one hand the days that it was missed, besides having someone fill in. but there's a lot of consistency and presence. And I think people overall get that, including the guy who said that. The guy who said that is, after I seen who it was, is more or less a friend and someone that I'll talk to. So he's fine and everyone's fine. But you got to fight through the bad days that you have. So let's go through this, though, with those that responded, which is most, okay? And then, Jim, I'll get to your question in a second. Zane, I don't know what you're talking about, but that's because you're from Missouri. Just joking. Bruce, same thing. Okay, first two are B's. Overall down, a G, OOG, not trading at this time. B, but stabilizing. Oh, the earlier B was stabilizing. Been a good year, going to end even better, improving all the time. G, especially last 3 months. 2 OKs. Demo only, and a G. Bruce, you didn't have to answer twice. Actually, 3 times. You answered 3 times. No, I'm just joking. So I didn't know what responses I would get from that. While I'm pretty encouraged that it's weighted to the G and the O, that doesn't say anything to the 2 or 3 people that are B's, right? And so I don't feel like, oh, good, most are succeeding, forget about the other 2. We're going to bring the other 2 and make sure that they're given the best chance to do this damn thing. And I think that the most important thing to succeed is just being on time. You gotta be on time for things. So many people are late. Success doesn't wait for you. You gotta be punctual, damn it. So many people take that for granted. But let's roll right into today's session, and hold on, I want to ask one guy a question. Give me a second. All right, so this isn't a completely polished, slide-driven meeting. Might do that next week a little bit. So the introduction of the edge zones, as we know or should know, is where you could start to see tempo in the past or in the present start to let out. When the market gets fast, up or down, and things like that. And by the way, Jim had a question. What was your question, Jim? I accidentally deleted it. Do me a favor when you get a chance and re-ask it, and I'll address it. So we know that the edge zones, or the reds and greens here, are a result of the relationship between the best bid and the best offer. And the delta profile, which are also referred to as alert levels, is just that, the delta profile. Instead of just straight volume at price, if there's an imbalance, it'll be a big green or a big red. Let me pull this chart away. If you haven't watched the session, I think it was on April 25th, 2016, I did a session on, I think it's called Alert Levels Revealed. Watch that after this session. And by the way, I'll post last week's session up along with this week's as well. But the delta profile, to me, is a more unique way to look at profiling. You could use your same profile techniques, your value area high, your POCs, but start looking at it from reds and greens. And so if it's a big green delta profile like you see on the right, if you guys can see my cursor, that means that it was the biggest imbalance of the session at that price, and because it's green, it was more aggressive buyers than sellers. Now it's across the price at 25 quarter when it's offered and at 25 quarter when it's bid. There must have been more people buying that price when it was offered than selling that price when it was bid. Buying that price when it was offered than selling that price when it was bid would make it go green if it's a big imbalance. So all of these reds and greens are also longer or shorter based on the other bars within that session. So it's not comparing 25 quarter with what happened 5 days ago necessarily if this is just yesterday's session. It's just comparing 25 quarter to every other price that traded in that session with the imbalances they might have had. So you could see 25 quarter didn't have an imbalance, or I'm sorry, 25.75 right here didn't have an imbalance. It might have had a lot of volume, but it was flat. It was pretty even across the price. So it wasn't heavily bought or heavily sold. So that's where volume profile and delta profile will differ, where you might have a big bar sticking out at 25.75 if it was just volume, but there was no imbalance, therefore it's a short bar. So far, so good? What I'm looking for people to do and collaborate and move with is tying these together. And that is, do we have tempo picking up? Do we see tempo picking up turning at open longs or open shorts? And Tom talked about an oil trade he had where there were a lot of open shorts. Tom, are you here still? Or are you with us? No, he's not. This session happens to be yesterday, previous day. You see that? And then this last sliver on the right is a combination of 30 days back. Now, if I scroll up, you're going to see nothing happen above 29.5 because we've never been above 29.5 in the last 30 hours, let alone 30 days. But it's going to have quite a bit of data to the downside because why? Obviously, we've traded this low over the past month. The reason why you're getting a lot of greens, by the way, in the edge zones, no one's asking me this. I ask myself this, though, because I don't like a lot of levels to pop up. It's been because it's so contained and so congested. That's why it's gotten busy. And it looks, I'm not saying it's busy technically. The chart looks busy because the market's slow. And so you got to kind of bake that in. So what are you seeing here at 16.5? You're seeing a good level at 17, and you're seeing some open longs at 16.5. I'd venture to say that's a good level before it became yesterday's low. So on a 30-day back session, and I want people to understand that, you could manipulate these into Today's session, ongoing. Yesterday's session, last week, last month. Just like you do for your volume and your market profile periodicities. Some people can throw delta profile up over a certain area. But just taking 30 days back, so it's accumulation of 1650. It's always tracking if it's heavily bought or heavily sold. And in this case, it's heavily bought, especially compared to all the other prices in that particular time frame. And that's why when it came down there yesterday at 17 even, it held as good support. This isn't a coincidence. This is where the market had some open longs and it was defended. Remember, when you have yesterday's session, it's not going to change. Today's session is going to change as the price moves back and forth. Obviously, yesterday's session is not going to change because it's baked in, just like yesterday's day session, high, low, open, close. That's all marked for time. We're done. They're done. So if you look at yesterday's POC for an imbalance, and it happened to be green, and we throw in a yellow line across, we're going to see how that became very important. The overnight high, or no, that was the day session high, but it also was the overnight high. Wasn't it the overnight high? If it wasn't the overnight high, it was this high in here. What the heck day is it? Today's the 2nd, right? Today's the 3rd. See, I'm early. People say I'm late. A day early. So I should say that's why I was late. Tell John. It's lucky I wasn't 24 hours late. On the 2nd, that held as really good resistance. However, it may or may not have been in. Today's the 3rd. So as we move into the overnight session, which is in here, okay, 25 quarter locked in as the biggest imbalance of the session. It becomes good support in the early morning hours. It remains good support all through here while all this looks busy. And it never was able to penetrate what became the regular trading session low right before 10 o'clock, these 25.75s. And this is today's session. Man, is it just a slow march? And that's how it's been. People have an opinion of getting short and can't get out. It's all right to have an opinion of being short. It's not all right to stay short. Let me turn this down. All right. Now, the other thing is we're going to check, because I just put this chart back together, we're going to check the threshold, 800. Oh, we might want to go a little higher than that. And the reason is because the market just stalled out at every price. You know what I mean? And when it's stalled out at every price, you're getting yourself with high volumes, pretty much as a product of it not moving. So let me pull this apart so you could separate the delta profile from the actual market. So 25 quarter was yesterday's POC. What I'd like guys to do is to focus more on delta profile in their profile studies. That's what alert levels were, and that's what they are. So most of you guys are profile students, right? The student of the profile. I'd like you to become the student of the delta profile and use the same rules and thought processes that you would have in a volume or TPO profile, but with the delta profile. It's just giving you a much better it's another dimension in the profiling or in just volume. I mean, if you look at the progression of profilers, it went from time, marking time, which is what market profile is. TPO and market profile, by the way, is the same thing. It marks time and price. Volume profile is where market profile morphed into a little bit as far as the whole progression of profiling, which is just watching what? Volume at price. Well, delta profile is giving you that added dimension of any imbalances, any kind of additional information that might be more important than just straight volume. The setting for this, if I help some people out that are asking for it, if this is what you want to see, I'll leave this up. Christine, anybody else that might want to see to duplicate this particular chart to add their profiles in. Now you could add different time periods like today's and see an ongoing profile on how it's developing, just like people will do with their volume and TPO profiles. And I think most guys, how many guys in here have a delta profile in some respect up? And so the answers are always yes, 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 several yes, yes, yes. I would say 80, 90% of the people that are in here will have it. Christine, did you see what you needed for this? Real quick, a question I want to answer by Jim is, if they're touched again, does the green or red imbalance go away? No. Nothing to do with touching. It has to do with if the bar closes below a green one, it goes away, or above a red one. If it closes. Above a red or below a green. So another question, do I ever look at other POCs? I used to look at it more, and I look at it less now because I found better stuff to look at, better ways to look at the same thing, and I don't want to look at too much. But this could be a real good helper for people that are struggling with qualifying which reds and greens maybe to use. Or zones that you already have. They don't have to be edge zones. They could be other levels and zones you have. Something else to help, qualify or confirm that, be that little extra nudge to get your butt in and out of a trade. So the 25 quarters might have been the POC for volume, right? What was yesterday's point of control? Does anybody have it up? Volume point of control. $24 even. Thanks, Mark. 25, 24 even? Or 25 quarter? Did you miss? Did you have a typo? They're just going to grind up through here. You could see on the 30-day a pretty decent green and balance, but that must have just happened over the past couple sessions, including today. However, you could see it holding all the way through here until it won't, and then it'll become subsequent support, this 28.75. So the 30-day is going to change to a little bit to incorporate today's action. But yesterday is not going to change. Yesterday is yesterday. So 24 even was yesterday's volume point of control in the S&P. So 25 quarter might not have showed up if you just looked at straight volume, right? I'm going to show you next week just a nice metaphor or analogy that I did that will help bring this in. But I'd like people to go back and continue to work on what you're doing with this stuff. Some of you guys have done great stuff. I think, to me, the most collaboration that started or that was kicked off, and you guys could agree, I think would agree, is after that alert level event, or April 25th, 2016. I think that kicked off a lot of real good collaboration that took off from that point. And to your credit, you ran and really had some great additions to it. Yeah, so on this chart, this is yesterday's, and the only two on there is yesterday's and 30 days back. I don't want everybody to just do what I'm showing you here, though. I want you to massage it, tweak it, study it, get comfortable with what you look at and like and say, this helps me, or maybe it doesn't help you. I'm not here to be everything I say is going to help every person. It's just not. It just has a good chance to. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. If we take this and make it a crude oil chart, you're not going to see any edge zones until I change that min diff down a little bit. But these are the alert levels, delta profile for yesterday in oil and for 30 days combined. I have to go into here and modify the key one. More than threshold would be this number down to like 150 or thereabouts. So yesterday's biggest imbalance in crude oil would have been 50.31. I don't think I don't like a 4 PNF, to be honest with you, in oil. I think 1 is much better. 6 is much better. So this is what it looks like over the last just hour or so, right? As crude oil came down into 31 a couple times, right? $31 has been a big spot, and I don't think it's a coincidence. I would look at this area. I don't think we've gotten up here in a while, but let's look at this area, 24 to 28 on the 51s here, and just to walk through this. That became a level after it did this. So you could say this didn't work as support. This most likely became and stuck out here because of this price action. See how imbalanced that was? So this became overhead resistance, but wasn't support when it walked down there. It's one thing you got to make sure you're analyzing when you're researching and doing your homework on this stuff. So if you come back here, this market never did retest this 5-cent area. When it does, I would imagine it's going to be decent resistance. Oops, I went too far. I would imagine it's going to be decent resistance. Let's go down here a little bit. I think this 50.18 to 12 area in here because of the green edge zones and this imbalance from yesterday will be support if we break another 25 cents from where oil is now. Anybody got questions? I didn't want to just roll all this together and say edge zones, alert levels, and VWAPs are up and really confuse the hell out of people because it can get overwhelming. And there is such a thing as too much. And I'm trying to avoid that. I'm opposite of too much. It's all about simplicity. But these concepts and these looks at the market do come from simple techniques. Hold on to that question until next week, Bruce. I think I'll add some clarity to it. Today's profile, someone's asking, I want you to be able to answer that question. Does it help you? For me, I'll give you my answer next week. But I'd like you to play with it, look at it, because my answer might be different than some of yours as to whether or not integrate today's profile with it. There's no wrong answer. So I was happy with the goods and the okays I've seen from the year from people from a percentage standpoint. But those who answer that they're not doing good, you just got to keep working. I'll do what I can to help you out. You do what you can to keep helping yourself out. Collaborate, keep yourself around good people. That I'll share with elaborate a little bit more next week, Dale. Good question, though. Don't forget it. Because it could be both. That's good, Mike. I'm glad that worked for you. It's different things that trigger different people. That's why there's just a lot of good content that's out there. Some might help some better than others. Sometimes it's a good conversation you have. Carl's keeping it simple and it's working. Why is that? Is it because of me? Not really. It's because of the people he's putting himself around, trying to slap some sense into them. There's a lot of room for sense in that head of yours. You too, Bruce. Bruce laughs. He's laughing at you, Carl. All right, guys. I'll post both of these up in a couple hours. We'll see you next week at 10:59 and 59 seconds.